there's a much better approach is just working out consistently for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks than letting your body go to hell, getting a role, getting a photo shoot, whatever, and then going, okay, for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to work out for 8 hours a day, right? Because generally that ends poorly. It's just that mundane consistency, that mundane discipline. All the magic happens in that realm of mundane, right? And the promise of magic outside of that, the exciting stuff, is really just smoke and mirrors.
You're listening to Inside Acting, a podcast dedicated to demystifying the inner and outer game of success in the entertainment industry. I'm AJ Meyer.
And I'm Trevor Algott, and coming up today in episode 307, part 2 of my conversation with the godfather of the modern-day intermittent fasting movement and the author of the seminal book, Eat, Stop, Eat, Brad Pilon. In part 2 today, we dig into the nuts and bolts of intermittent fasting, the various methods, how and why fasting works, fasting and exercise, and a few tricks to help get you started and keep you going, plus a couple more little bonus things. It's all coming at you right now in episode 307. Stay with us.
Support for this episode of Inside Acting is brought to you in part by Rehearsal Pro, the current version of Rehearsal, the essential app for actors. And it's now available in the iOS App Store. So if you want to learn your lines, be off book for your auditions, explore your character, make stronger, bolder choices, and do a bunch more, go to rehearsal.pro/IAP right now to learn about all the cool new features in the newest version of Rehearsal, the groundbreaking app designed by actors for actors. That's rehearsal.pro/IAP. Good morrow, sir.
So are you back in LA now?
I am, yes. Have been for a week or so. Things are good.
How'd it go up there?
It went well. Sourced a guitar and made all that happen, and drove back. That drive is tough on cars. We had a little issue, cars in the shop last time.
What happened?
Same thing happened last year. We got some kind of error message on the thing, and all modern cars, whether it's a Tesla or not, have computers built into them, kind of running the show. And I got an error, like as if it was my computer. So there's some issue with the transmission. Fun times. It was fine though. It drove fine, but it's just funny that a year later, same trip, car issues again. But last time we had to completely we had to say goodbye entirely to the car. So this time I think it's just going to be some kind of maintenance, and then we'll be back on our feet here, on our wheels, as it were.
All right. Do you guys have a rental or anything in the meantime, or are you going to be biking, busing, walking your way around LA?
Fortunately, my sister is actually in New York right now, and so we have her car. So good timing, I guess.
Rock on. You've got a little bit of a story this week. You passed on an audition because it would significantly impact your bottom line from your Thrival job. Is that right?
Yeah, it was tough. I sort of tortured myself a bit. For a number of different reasons. We don't want our representation to feel like we're, too good for a job, or, don't want to take a job because of the money, because obviously they don't make money unless we make money in acting anyway. But I got another audition for the role of Judd in Oklahoma, which is something I have always wanted to take a crack at. I think when that show is really well directed and well produced and well acted, it doesn't have to be as cheesy as its reputation suggests. But and it was at this really reputable musical theater in Maine and they audition out of New York all the time. So this came from my New York agents, but after taxes and commissions and everything, I would be making about half of what I make at my Thrival job. So, and lose my Thrival job in the meantime. I'd have to sort of come back and get rehired, and it just is not would not have been worth it. And it's tough, but I set out, at the beginning of this year to pay off all of my credit card debt by the end of the year. And March was a rough month. I didn't get very far ahead, so I feel behind. I have a weekly goal, and I only hit it one of the 4 weeks of March. But that means I've only missed 3 weeks of the entire year because I've hit it every other week. So, I got some sort of makeup to do in April, and it's just, looking at that, I'm like, I don't think I can swing this. And I have this goal in mind by the end of the year. So, but because, like I said, a combination of a bunch of different things, but I thought it might be an interesting conversation for the podcast, because I'm sure there's tons of people out there who go through this, this decision-making process.
Yeah, there's really something to unpack here, because on the one hand, you went to school to do musical theater. This is presumably the reason you live in one of the more expensive cities in the country, and have the lifestyle and the jobs, plural, that you do, and not like a career in something that's going to make you 10 times the money. So like this is more or less your guiding life purpose, and yet you are choosing to pass up on opportunities to do what you've been trained to do what you've oriented your entire life around, because you're opting for stability and a little bit more of the long view of staying in the game, as a mature adult, rather than somebody who drops everything at every opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, an argument could be made that what I wouldn't be making in money would be made up for by the fact that I'm beginning to do my dream, being paid to be an actor. Like there's something that's not quantifiable there. That you can't put a dollar amount on. So your point is well heard in terms of this is, what I went to school for. And it's not, that's why, like I said, I sort of tortured myself for a few days, because it's not the easiest decision to say, like, what, I can't, not right now. Like now is not the right time. I mean, the thing is like, if I accomplish my goal this year, and the only debt that I'm carrying around with me is student loan debt, instead of, the debt from paying off joining, my SAG-AFTRA initiation fee and my credit card debt and all this stuff. That's a different story. That significantly reduces by probably 2/3 my monthly expenses. So, my point is I'm sort of sacrificing a bit in 2018, and not, everything. I'm still, going out on hikes, and I want to do a couple overnight backpacking trips, and I want to, we're going to Lake Tahoe on vacation in May. So I'm not depriving myself of everything, but I am, taking all of these things into account and making sure that I'm being fiscally responsible in order to crush this 2018 goal. And maybe that means that 2019 will be a completely different ballgame. It'll just be a different outlook. If I am not, if I'm spending cash on everything, which has kind of been my goal and my the way that I've been able to get this all sort of under control, that's a completely different feeling and a completely different financial foundation to make decisions from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the key takeaway from me that you just shared is not right now. Like you're changing up your strategy so that you can bring your fullest self to your work in the future. And it's so easy to lose sight of the fact that this is the long game. This is not something that's like, oh my God, if I miss this one job, I'll never work again. I mean, there are opportunities.
I used to feel that way.
Yeah. And there are opportunities coming down the pike all the time. I mean, there are always going to be opportunities, even if you're like an A-list actor and you just blow it on a film, like, you've still got a pretty healthy career doing B-list movies. Now, you may not enjoy that to the same degree, but you're still going to be able to work. I mean, the work, especially in an era of Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, I mean, there are like something like 700 plus shows I've read that Netflix is shows and productions. I mean, comedy specials and documentaries and whatnot, but like 700 that they're in negotiations for 2018, 2019. 700. Wow. 700. There's more work out there right now than ever. So it's like, and you've still got live theater, and you've got commercials, and you've got audiobooks and voiceover. It is a great time to be alive and to be a performer. So foregoing an opportunity in the interest of making yourself stronger to more solidly tackle your career in the future, I think is a really awesome thing.
Yeah, and there are career, since you're bringing up the career side of things, there are career considerations as well. Like it's not necessarily, like I said, very reputable theater, and who knows who from the sort of Broadway or New York community might go out to see it, but it's not super highly visible in terms of, the probability of beginning work from this is lower than it might be at some other, space. So, everything has to be taken into account is all I'm saying. And the career part of it, which you just spoke into is a part of that as well.
Well, it brings to mind the 4 questions. I think it was Uta Hagen's 4 questions. We haven't talked about this in like years, but
yeah, it's been a while.
But what are they again? It's like,
is it good for your, will it be good for your career? Will it be good for your craft? Will you make money? Will you have fun? And if you can answer yes to 2 of the 4, you should probably do it. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we ever found the attribution.
Yeah. I don't know that we did either.
I think it's Uda, but I don't think we ever actually figured it out. Yeah. Because I feel like you said, it's been a couple of years. I have this memory of a listener reaching out and being like, I tried looking it up and I can't find anything on Uta Hagen, saying those 4. So anyway,
right. Somebody wise said it.
Yeah. If you know where it came from, please do reach out.
Yeah. All right. Cool, man. Well, congratulations on making a strategic long game choice. That's really inspiring.
Thank you. That's that means a lot coming from, especially from you, from somebody who has been so financially, like you've educated yourself really well on finances, and I've always respected that about you and looked up to you as far as that stuff goes.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I think knowing things and acting on them are completely different. But I've endeavored to walk the talk when it comes to responsible, fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility. So thank you. I'm glad that you have that impression.
I'm glad that I'm fooling you.
Yeah, basically. Support for this episode of Inside Acting is also brought to you in part by vo2gogo.com, the award-winning voiceover training system and the winner of Backstage's Reader's Choice Award for Best Voiceover Training 4 years in a row. Visit vo2gogo.com/start to get access to a free Getting Started in Voiceover online class that'll help you add voiceover to your acting portfolio, to your set of skills, to your set of money-making, workable, marketable skills as an actor and performer and artist. That's vo2gogo.com/start. And I think that's basically it, unless you have anything else before we jump into this interview with Brad.
No, man.
Okay, rock on. So last week, guys, I realized, Brad and I we just hit it off so well and so quickly that I kind of slipped up on properly introducing intermittent fasting and Eat Stop Eat and everything that he does. And so finally in this segment, we really get down to the nitty-gritty of what he's best known for, which is intermittent fasting, specifically a specific protocol that he calls Eat, Stop, Eat. But we talk about sort of what happens and why it happens and how to make it happen more consistently when it comes to essentially just limiting your calorie intake, but in a really sustainable and healthy way. And so we get a little science nerdy, biophysical stuff, but it's nothing that's too over people's heads, I don't think. So really hope you enjoy hearing from Brad on some of the specifics when it comes to intermittent fasting in this segment today. Enjoy, and we'll catch you on the other side. Different diets over the years, and I've read a ton about this stuff, and it's fun to be able to sort of approach it with authority and notice things in your body or in the way you respond to different things and go like, oh, well, this is probably what's happening here. But what I've found over the years is that I really don't know anything, because sometimes A doesn't equal or doesn't lead to B. Sometimes A leads to, 467. So it's an interesting thing. And that's where your work comes in with intermittent fasting, which I love so much, because it removes a lot of that sort of sciencey stuff. And it just gets down to look, food is about tradition. It's about fuel. It's about enjoyment. It's about a bunch of different things. And really, it's something that people have been dealing with for all of human history. And the human body, our biology was forged in an environment of scarcity a lot of the time. And so it was built to go stretches of time without eating. In fact, it's quite healthy from what I understand. So there's a lot of different fasting protocols. This is a big thing right now. There's this
huge.
Yeah, the warrior diet and lean gains and alternate day fasting. The 5-2 diet is one that I enjoy a lot. And that's closest to Eat, Stop, Eat, really, the 5-2 diet.
Actually, I did a big long interview with the 5-2 diet people before the 5-2 diet came out. So that was fun.
Yeah. They reference you quite a bit in their book.
Yeah, which I appreciate. That was really nice of them. And the only basic difference there is the 5-2 diet is you fast twice a week. So 1 day a week you fast, but you still eat during that fast, just a smaller amount. I think it's a specific amount for men and women. I'm going to say 300 for women, 600 for men. And I know
500 for women and 600 for men. It's supposed to be 25% or so of your normal calorie intake. Yeah.
So then the slight difference there with the Eat, Stop, Eat, you don't eat at all, but you fast for a 24-hour period, but never a whole day. So if you and I were to start fasting right now, let's say it's 2 p.m., we would fast till tomorrow at 2 p.m. So we fast for 24 hours, but not for a full day. Every day you eat. With 5-2, you fast for a day, which if you think about it, depending on how long you slept before and how long you sleep after, is 36-ish hours, we'll just say. So it's actually a longer fasting period, but they throw in 500 or 600 calories worth of food in that period. So,
which technically breaks the fast, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it still causes weight loss. It's still a low calorie intake, but it's not. It's almost intermittent dieting,
right?
Which again is just, fasting was popular, so we're going to call it fasting, obviously. But in that, in their defense, they called it the 5-2 diet, right? Not 5-2 fasting. So. Just sort of play off it. But so with Eat, Stop, Eat, my approach is, since it was written in late 06, was a 24-hour fast once or twice a week. The fast is divided between 2 days. So like I said, 2 p.m. to 2 p.m. As an example, could be 7 p.m. to 7 p.m., could be 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then when you're right before that fast, you don't do anything special, right? You don't pre-eat some magical fasting meal. And the minute the fast is done, you pretend it never happened. So if we end our fast tomorrow at 2, whatever it is you would normally eat at around 2 is what you eat. You don't eat 1,000 calories to make up for your fast. If that was a time you normally just grab a tea or coffee with a muffin, that's what you do. If you have a shake at that time, that's what you do. And so what you're trying to do is take that 24 hours worth of calories and minus them from your week. Now, you're not going to be perfect at it. You're probably going to eat a bit more after your fast, but it's going to be still a deficit. So you've taken a week's worth of dieting, hopefully, and squished it into 2 24-hour periods. So on all the other days, you get to eat like a normal human being, right? You're not at a dinner saying, actually, I can only have the steak, or I can only have the bread. I don't know, with the bread diet. When your aunt's, your cousin's getting married, right? You just don't fast on that day, and you eat the meals provided to you, right? You're not the person at the wedding staring at the wedding cake being like, I can't have it, right? You plan for it. And so it just allowed for just a massive amount of flexibility that a lot of the other fasting regimens don't have. Now, lean gains or 16-8 or the warrior diet are all very similar, where it's daily fasting for roughly 16 hours. And it depends. I mean, to say lean gains is just fasting is kind of a discredit to the work that Martin, the guy who designed it, has done, because it really is a fasting protocol plus a dieting protocol plus a workout protocol, right? But so in general, the fasting he uses as part of lean gains is sort of a 16-hour fast. If you do the math and you count that most people fast, let's say for 8 to 9 hours a night while they're sleeping, you find that with Eat Stop Eat 2 24-hour fasts a week plus your normal fast at night still comes out to be a bit less fasting per week than a typical 16-8 protocol, right? So you're still doing a bit more fasting. So you might get a bit quicker results with the 16-8. The problem is your life is pretty regimented, right? So you are definitely not eating every day before 2. So if you're like me and love breakfast or like having the ability to have a mimosa when the time arises, that can be fairly limiting. So I liked Eat Stop Eat's design of flexibility, right? So it's 2 fasts on whatever freaking days you want, as opposed to fasting every single day. Results will be similar, but generally you're going to find that one will suit your personality and lifestyle better than the other at any given time, right? So you might start off being like, I am 100% Eat Stop Eat, this is awesome. And then 5 years later be like, no, the regimented style now is what fits for me. And then you might flip back. It's completely dependent, but they generally all accomplish the same thing, which is the simplicity and ease of, instead of worrying about what you should eat, you just say, screw it, I'm not eating anything for a period of time.
Yeah. I love that in Eat Stop Eat, at one point you say something like, all these companies, all these supplement companies, all these diet books, they're all telling us what to eat, but nobody's talking about not eating. And
yeah, it's crazy. Well, because there's no money in not eating.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
If I could do it over again, if I was a bit more of a ass than I already am, I would have put in a 200-calorie diet of my supplement or something, right? But just to make some money off the idea, because there isn't much to do with fasting after you tell someone, all right, so don't eat, and that's it. Right. So it really simplifies it. And getting all the way back, I mean, for in an interesting proof of concept, I can tell you that whether it's a 16-hour fast or a 24-hour fast, that with 100% confidence, I can tell you you're going to lose weight during that fasting period, because you're not consuming any carbon, right? But you're still alive, which means you're breathing out. So you're losing non-water body weight during that period of time. So if you're not losing the weight you want while taking part in any intermittent fasting protocol, the issue isn't the fasting, it's what you're doing in between the fasts. It's how much carbon you're replacing in your body. So it really is a foolproof 100% effective method of weight loss. The only unfortunate part of it is you do still have to eat. And then when you do eat, you have to eat responsibly. Right. So
yeah. And that's the tough part, right? Like the first couple times I tried my Eat Stop Eat sort of journey, it was tough. I got headaches, I got cranky. I went through, I think, a lot of the hangriness that people experience, and I started having second thoughts. Am I hurting myself? Is this safe? So I 2 questions for you. Number one is, What's happening to the body hormonally or under the hood when you are foregoing food for a relatively short period of time in a grand scheme of things, but what can feel like an eternity when you're in it? And then number two, when you break your fast and you eat as you would normally eat, that's easier said than done. Like I'm definitely the guy who's like, bring on the pancakes. It's time to eat, So maybe that's the second part of it, but I'm curious how you might recommend people stick to that. So the first part, what's happening under the hood when you stop eating for 20 to 24 hours?
All right. So depending on the size of the meal you ate in the preceding hours before the fast, for the first couple of hours for the fast, whether it's 4 hours or let's say 8 hours, you are still digesting and using the components of your food for your metabolism.
Wow. So for 4 to 8 hours, you're still in a fed state. Yeah,
which is ridiculous because if you're anything like me, I can sometimes start a fast and be starving like an hour and a half into it. I'm like, I literally just ate. Like I'm not actually fasting yet. Like it's so, and then what happens is you slowly from there, you start moving into what's called the fasted state. So you've been fasting for 4 to 6 hours, but you're in the fasted state, let's say after that. And that's when the supply of nutrients and energy and building blocks from your food has dwindled, but your body's still doing stuff. So it's like, all right, we got to use our backups here. We got to use our stores. And your body slowly moves into a metabolism that's predominantly uses fat. And since you're not eating fat, it's using your body fat, right? And so your body fat starts to get released from all your awesome body fat stores and, your rolls and whatever. And those fats are then broken down. And when they're broken down, those carbons are used to build whatever your body needed to build. And then when you exhale, that's what you're exhaling. So it moves from predominantly food-based metabolism to a predominantly body fat-based metabolism. You're still doing all the same stuff, right? Like you're still a live, moving human being. It's just you're switching fuel sources. And I think, and there's some evidence to suggest that this happens, but it's not, complete evidence. But some people have a bit of a harder time with that switchover. It needs to be kind of learned. If you've been in the fed state for the last 20 years of your life, because you ate right before you went to bed, and you ate right up when you got up from bed, and you ate all day, learning to kind of switch over tends to be difficult. The term is metabolic flexibility. And the first person I knew to talk about it was Mike Nelson. And he really sort of looked into this idea that some people just switch over faster or I guess more smoothly than others. And so that's why some people have a bit of a hard time, in that 6 to 8 hour window of their fast where they do get kind of cranky, kind of pissy, kind of lightheaded, right?
But it gets easier the more you do it, I've found.
It does. And I think you learn with practice and you get smart. So for me, if your hard part is, let's say, roughly 7 to 10 hours in your fast, well, the reason you stop eat is divided between 2 days is I want you to be asleep during that hard part then. So you sleep through the hardest part, which is, I love sleeping through anything that's difficult. It's perfect. So, yeah. And so that's what's happening. Like from a complete physiology point of view, everything is happening. Insulin is going down, growth hormone is going up for the express purpose of switching you over to a metabolism based on using your fat stores as an energy source, a fuel source, and a building blocks source, right? So, people like to talk about you're either building or you're not, and it's not entirely true. I mean, when you're fasting, your hair's still growing, your toenails are still growing, enzymes are being broken down and built back up. Stuff's still happening, right? So it's all fueled by your body fat because it's the fuel that's available for that express purpose. And then you stop fasting. You do the exact same switchover, but in reverse. So you are in a largely fat-based metabolism. Then you introduce food. Your body kind of does a, what the hell? Okay, fine, right? And then it has a couple hours of an odd switchover. And then you're just back into a food-based metabolism. But you're no dummy, and you know that you've eaten less. You know that a deficit has been made, and you would prefer to refill that deficit, right? So as you're refilling that deficit, or as you're fighting against the urge to refuel that deficit, you have a bit of a mental battle. And again, like you pointed out, it is learned and it gets easier. But you got to remind yourself that you just spent 24 hours not eating for a reason. And the reason wasn't so that you could eat an entire bag of Oreos when you were done and cancel the whole thing out, right? So you do have to go back, and I like to just really imagine the fast never happened and just eat like you normally would. And if you can conquer that, then you're on your way to some pretty good long-term weight loss. If you can't, if you literally can't do that, then there's a couple tricks. So the first one is to play with your start and stop time of your fast, right? Like my wife really likes fasting from 10 a.m. to 10 a.m., which I think is just completely crazy. I used to fast 7 p.m. to 7 p.m., but then that got really hard. So now I fast 2 p.m. to 2 p.m. seems to be my kind of sweet zone. And that number is going to change. So just because, 10 a.m. to 10 a.m. worked for you for the last 6 months doesn't mean it's going to, be the best one for you now. So you kind of have to play that out. The other thing is, like we talked about before when we were talking about thin air, is maybe just going for a walk or getting active, right? Doing something exciting. My buddy of mine, John Barbin, likes to say, he's like, I doubt anybody who jumps out of an airplane skydiving for the first time in the first 3 seconds is like, I am kind of digging a Burger King.
Yeah.
Right? You're not, because you're so overloaded with stimulus. The last thing you're thinking about is like, I need some fries, right? So it's just keep active, keep entertained, right? And then sort of just really remind yourself to eat responsibly, that there is no magic, that there isn't a magic food you're going to eat after your fast to make it work even better. And that, even if there's a 1% chance there is a magic food that makes it better, the 99% chance is that's not the food you're putting in your mouth right now, right? So if you kind of give up on the magic of it and just be like, oh, as boring and ridiculous as it sounds, just sort of consistency and responsibility is what's going to win the game here. As mundane as that is, that tends to be what works for the majority of people out there.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to talk briefly about this process that apparently happens when you're fasting. That's been getting a lot of sort of attention, especially among like the Silicon Valley types, which is, and correct me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but autophagy?
Autophagy, right. So yeah, I added in the autophagy chapter to Eat, Stop, Eat. I think not in the edition you had, but maybe the 2011 or 12 edition. And I actually, if you dig really hard, you'll find the interviews where I called it autophagy. Yeah, awesome. Anyway, so I added it in, and because it was an area of interest, and I was trying to explain to people the recycling that goes on, right?
Yeah.
Fact, like you do break things down.
This is fascinating to me, by the way, this whole part of it.
Yeah, well, because everybody was like, but what about the catabolism and what about the breakdown? And I'm saying, yes, that's a good part. It's super important. So I added in the autophagy chapter. I got lambasted by a good friend of mine for adding it in. He was like, this is going to become so big and people don't really understand what you're saying. And he was right. Because it took off and it became really a big speaking point because it's complex, right? But really, if you want to dumb it down to something that's really understandable, it's that the catabolism and breakdown of your body that happens during a fast is a good thing. It is housekeeping. It's kind of like that awesome feeling for anybody who owns a home and is, a bit of a hoarder, of buying a giant bin and just cleaning out your garage and just chucking stuff. And it's just that awesome feeling of getting rid of stuff or recycling stuff or finding new uses for stuff. And that's what your body does. And so the process of autophagy is really the breakdown of things that you don't need anymore. It's getting rid of the dead weight, the bad relationships, all, whatever you want to, all the stuff that just makes minimalists proud, right? It's just you don't need. But then also, being a good environmental recycling type person, taking things, breaking them down and being like, I can use this to make a new part of a liver or a kidney. It's a constant recycling. But if you're never in a fasted state, and if you're always in a surplus, and if you're never exercising, then this isn't happening to as large a degree. I mean, it's still happening, but just not to the same degree. And so the argument is we are somewhat deficient in this breakdown, this autophagy, this catabolism, in the place of a constantly expanding anabolism, which is just the basic gaining of junk we don't need, like excess body fat and the rest. But that the ability of a fast to kind of let that catabolism happen is the original reason I put it in Eat, Stop, Eat was just to explain that catabolism is a good thing, because everybody was so worried about, but I'm going to lose muscle, and I'm like, well, no, you're losing a small amount of protein from tons of sources, not just your muscle. But this is a good thing. You're getting rid of the proteins that may be slightly twisted or built at this time, and they're just being broken down and replaced with new ones that you get when you start eating again, right? And so that's all I was trying to do, but it really turned into something much bigger than that, as it made that area just infinitely interesting. To really kind of break it down, it's just saying that the idea of catabolism, the idea of a little bit of wasting, and it's not just your muscle, right? The proteins come from all over your body, but is a fundamental part of human metabolism. I mean, if you want to imagine a yin and yang of physiology, it's breakdown and building, and they both are, and it's not one side or the other. They're kind of constantly fluxing. And it's so just making sure that maybe that part is running smoothly, the diagnostics part, right? And that's what I thought was really interesting aspect of fasting, is we're reframing the idea of catabolism not necessarily being a bad thing, but a good thing.
Yeah. My experience of it when I fast, I know that I'm in like the right spot when a couple things happen. Number one, and you talk about this in the book, my fingers and toes get pretty cold. In fact, my whole body temperature, I kind of get cold. And I think that's a symptom of your body shifting to a fat burning fuel source. Is that right?
It's a bit. A couple different things happen. What you're seeing there is a predominant move of blood flow more towards areas of fat, right? So you don't really have fat toes and fat fingers. You
don't know me, Brad. You don't know me, man.
Yeah, exactly. You just snatched the keyboard.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so you tend to have the idea is there's more fat flow to your fat source. Sorry, more blood flow to your fat sources, as that is where the fuel is now coming from, and then it's being sort of pushed back out from there. So yeah, it does happen, and I don't think it's a good predictor of your metabolic rate. Like some people like to be, my fingers are getting cold, so my metabolism's slowing down. You're going, no, it's not. You're still breathing. You're good, right? Like you're still all right. But it is something that does happen. A really easy way to get around that, if it's not comfortable, is again just like a 10-minute walk. Just get active for 10 minutes. It's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, I find the same thing. I'll sip a lot of like hot water throughout the day to sort of help with that. And of course I'll stay active. I'll start moving around if it gets really bad. But another interesting thing that happens is that I find that my mind at a certain point gets super sharp. It's like my hearing and my eyesight and my thinking all sort of graduate to this sort of superhuman level almost. And my theory is that this happens because if we harken back to the days where, like, we're on the savannah and we're without food for a day or two, like, our body wants to rally the troops. Like, being hangry is not an evolutionarily supportive, like, way to react to hunger. Like, that's not going to help us go out and find new food. But if the body rallies the troops, starts recycling all the old damaged cells, cleaning house inside, and then funneling its resources to hearing, sight, thinking, focus, things like that, then it's much more likely to find food. Is that sort of more or less what you think is happening there?
It would be the theory to explain what's happening, or at least a guess as to why it may be sort of ingrained in our genetics, or why it happens. What is happening, what you're describing does show up in research, right? So people do find that there is an increased concentration, and I believe recall. I'd have to go back through the actual research. So in different measures of alertness, you tend to see an increase when you are fasted and a decrease when you are fed. It's slightly different, interestingly, in children. You get all that research supporting breakfast, most of it done on children, showing they tend to learn better after having a good breakfast. But it's a bit skewed by socioeconomic status, stuff like that. The kids who tend to have good breakfast also tend to come from good homes. The kids who don't have good eat breakfast, when you're talking 7, 8, 9-year-olds, a lot of them aren't doing it because they're trying to lose weight, but they're doing it because breakfast wasn't actually available. Right. So, yeah. And that could be, and not to belittle those parents. It might simply because depending on where you live, your kid might have an hour and a half bus ride to school. And so, you had to get them out the door. But generally for adults, it does seem to see there is an increased level of alertness and concentration during fasting, not during the whole fast, because there will be periods of time where you're just sitting there going like, I am brain dead right now. But I don't know if that's the fasting or just if you had been eating at that exact same time, you'd still be brain dead, because we all have those brain dead periods of time during the day regardless, right? So it might just be that you're having less of them when you're fasting.
That's interesting. Now, I know we have a limited time, so I just have a few more questions before I let you go. But fasting and athletes. I swim competitively for a master's team out here in LA. I'm in the water or the gym 6 to 7 days a week. And sometimes I wonder if my fasts are harming my, gains, I suppose.
Interesting. Okay, so for an athletic point of view, I find it really interesting because the couple things I toy with is, and swimming would be one of them, is swimming is a sport not unlike, let's say, climbing, where it's very important to have a strength to weight ratio, right? So in a fasted state, as long as your glycogen and fat stores are there to fuel the muscles for the period of time that you need to use them for, then having a Big Mac and fries sitting in your stomach while you're trying to swim, that's, close to 1.5 pounds more weight than you would need to normally have dragging around with you. So I would wondering if it would be possible to actually use the fast to your advantage in that way. I also think with athletes, especially high performance athletes, we tend to crutch on nutrition, right? We get a lot of high performance athletes, whether they wanted to admit it or not, are creatures of habit and luck and routine and rituals. And so I like the idea of every once in a while fasting. We did this with rugby players and that kind of stuff. And you play fasted. Like, I know you always have exactly 6.4 ounces of Gatorade and that's part of your routine.
Yeah.
I want you to do that. I want you to play fasted because honestly, if you can destroy that guy over there fasted, then you can probably do it fed. Right. And so I like the psychological benefit of training athletes fed and unfed. I like the occasional sport where there may actually be a performance benefit to it, and like a swimming or a rock climbing, thing like that. And then when it comes to actual gains, again, if we want to go deep into it, there's so much going on with a muscle remodeling. It starts with inflammation into satellite cell activation. Those satellite cells then enter the muscle and fuse, become new myonuclei, which means more domain. It's so complicated and it takes a long time. So it's not just I lifted weights, then I had a burger and now I'm getting bigger, right? And it takes longer than that. So if you trained, even though you were fasted, and then after that training, within a couple hours, you're eating again, well, the damage and the metabolic effect your training had is still sitting there. Right. And so once you provide your body with the substrate that needs to do what it needs to do, it's still going to do it. You may have delayed it an hour, but it's still going to do it. And so, with the exception of maybe training, then fasting for 48 hours and then eating a suboptimal diet and, get dumb stuff like that. But as long as there's some sense of responsibility and common sense to it, you can't live like a cokehead rock star and the same gains as your buddy who's not doing that, right? And so I think it comes down to that. I think of a good night's sleep, proper rest and recovery, and then some sort of responsible nutrition. It's not just on eating normally. Is enough for your body to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. I try to do my longer fasts on the one day off or a lighter day that I have during the week. But what I find it seems to work for me is that I almost always train fasted whenever I can help it. I just have a much better workout, I find. And if I'm super hurting before a workout and I just need something, I'll usually just have some fruit, usually some dates or a banana or an apple or all of the above, because they don't tend to sit in the stomach too long and the muscles can use that right away, from what I understand. And that seems to help. But what I found hurts in the long term is turning to pre-workout formulas or caffeinated things and becoming really reliant on those, because I find that my hormones get all screwy after a while. My sleep gets screwy and my gut health feels weird.
They're a weird thing, especially the ones that are heavily caffeine or stimulant based, because anybody who's used a stimulant would kind of get is you get used to them. So then you need more, and you get used to them, and then you need more. So you're in a constant battle of just slightly more, and then you spend the rest of your day irritable just so you can get that one extra rep in your workout. I mean, I'm sensitive enough that I hate having a schedule, but I'm a creature of habit and routine. So I will have 2 espressos every morning. They're divided, but that's my basic coffee intake, and they have to be before noon. And if they are after noon, let's say I decide to have another espresso at like 3 or 4 or 5, something crazy like that, I'm a dick at night. And I'm just a little short-tempered. I guess that's a lie. I'm more short-tempered. Right? So, and so everybody's just a bit more sensitive to those things. So that doesn't help me pre-workout. I'm more like you, just a little bit of food if I need it. But I generally prefer training fasted as well. A common misconception there is the glycogen, which is a sugar that's stored in your muscle to be used as a fuel source. That's just for that muscle. So the glycogen stored in your bicep is just for that bicep. So if you've been fasting for 24 hours, your liver glycogen might be low, and that's the glycogen that supplies your blood in your body. That left bicep's still chock full. It's not going to share. It's a dick. It's like, no, this is mine, right? Wow. So it basically, you're topped up and ready to go. You could be 24 hours into a fast. Those muscles can do what they're supposed to do. Your brain might be a different thing. You need to, because it's relying on your liver and your body fat to produce ketones. But the actual muscle can do what it's supposed to do. It's just your job to make sure you still do it, right? And then now it changes if you're like, yeah, but I'm actually going to play a 2.5-hour soccer game. Well, that's slightly different, right? But if we're just talking about an hour of hard training with some rest in between it, you should be able to handle that.
Wow. This is such a trip, man. I could talk about this stuff for years. I'm so yeah, it's really cool, and I'm so fascinated by it. But I also understand that, like you, I've learned that most people just sort of they don't really care. They just want to look and feel good.
Yeah.
And so I guess to the people listening who maybe aren't into the nerdy stuff like this, and maybe aren't, athletes, maybe they want to, move more and stuff, but they just want to feel good. They want to not hate themselves. They want to look good on camera. How would you sum up your approach, and what one sort of thing might you want to leave them with?
Do what works. And so it's a really simple concept, but based on what we talked about with carbon and all that. So just not eating for a brief period of time works, but you have to eat, right? Everybody knows what happens. And I mean, it's really important for you guys, but there is a very quick look that you get on your face if you're just not eating at all. And we recognize it, right? Mm-hmm. So you do have to eat. It allows that kind of youthful, non-drawn look in the face. And then food is important. Right back to that autophagy we talked about. If you're constantly breaking down or recycling and you're getting rid of the stuff you don't need, that's cool. But you got to be able to replace that with the stuff you do need, which is built from the food you're eating. Right. So you write down the yin and yang. It can't be all catabolism all the time. So you need to take brief periods of not eating, which is the fast. Combine it with periods of eating responsibly, which is the eating, and then you really need to shut the rest of it out. I don't think it's much different than sporting events or acting. It's easy to overthink it, and you do your best performance, again, acting or sports, when you're kind of just not thinking and you're just relying on what you've learned works. And if you overthink anything, it tends to fall apart on you. And then dieting and taking control of your body is no different. Is the minute you try to make it complex, it works for the first brief period of time because you're that interested and invested in it, and then it falls apart, right? Mm-hmm. So it's better just to constantly be learning and honing your craft, what works with your diet, what works with your body, what doesn't. But then you just do it, and it's okay to be a hobbyist. It's okay to read about all the different diet and exercise and programs, but just realize if you jump around constantly, you're just full of information with no practical applicability, right? So just focus on what works and just sort of stick with that and let it do what it's supposed to do. You know what you need to do, right? There's the stuff that's not sexy, the mundane consistency, mundane discipline, eating responsibly, having cake, just not having a cake, right? And working out, but knowing that like there's a much better approach is just working out consistently for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks than letting your body go to hell, getting a role, getting a photo shoot, whatever, and going, okay, for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to work out for 8 hours a day, right? Because generally that ends poorly, right? So it's just that mundane consistency, that mundane discipline. All the magic happens in that realm of mundane, right? And the promise of magic outside of that, the exciting stuff, is really just smoke and mirrors. It really is. Even fasting, as sexy as it sounds, I'm literally just telling you not to eat for 24 hours. It's pretty fucking mundane. I just swore. But yeah, it's not sexy, right? But it works really well. And that's why it's been around. If you want any sort of proof of evidence in that regard, I've been a one-hit wonder for a decade. Like I wrote about fasting in 2006 and I'm still talking about it now and whatever it is, right? So it has that staying power that makes it worth investigating.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, Brad, I'm totally sold. I'm ready to do my first 24-hour fast, or I'm going to commit to two times a week because I want to lose some weight. But 24 hours seems like a pretty brutal stretch. What would be your tip for easing into this lifestyle?
It's simple. It's 24-ish. Right? And the best part of the only caveat I have is whatever, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 hours, whatever hours it is, I want you to pick it and stick with it. So the habit I want you to get into is you tell yourself you're not eating for 22 hours. When that 22 hours is up, you eat, right? Because you're in control. What I don't want people getting into the habit of is fasting for as long as they possibly can, then breaking and eating. Repeat. Fast for as long as you can, then break and eat. Because I don't want the break. I want the control. The thing I hate about dieting, traditional dieting, is this long, slow, inevitable march to failure. You just can't do it forever, right? So you're gonna mess up, and then you reinforce with negative reinforcement that you're a mess up. And on your next diet, you're probably going to mess up again and again. And then you're going to get stricter, which means you're probably going to mess up earlier. And you get even stricter and mess up earlier. With fasting, I like the idea of a positive reinforcement. So once you hit that 21, 23, 24-hour period, you're like, I'm done. I did it. I'm awesome. Like, I can do this. Like, if you can do it once, you're going to have good fast and you're going to have bad fast. But if you can do it once, you can do it again. And if you do it again, you just can do it. Right. That's a much better positive reinforcement, because then that allows you, all you have to do on the other 5 24-hour periods is eat responsibly. You don't even have to diet, right? You just have to eat whatever it is that kind of maintains your body weight, and then fast again, and then eat responsibly. So you get to eat more than a person who's dieting, but you don't get to eat as much as you want to, which is that middle ground, right? So it doesn't have to be 24 hours to start. I just like 24. It's nice and simple. But whatever time you pick, stick with it.
Yeah. And I would add, do it on a day when you're busy. Like if you've got like appointments and you're running around town, that's a great day to be fasting. Because if you're just sitting at home thinking about food and how many more hours you have to go, man, good luck.
Oh, yeah. Like on a long road trip, you don't fast, right? As much as you think it makes so much sense to fast, just accept that there's going to be a lot of M&Ms or whatever's going on, and just embrace the road trip. Stuff like that where you're stuck. But yeah, when you're busy, when you're active or doing stuff or thinking hard, that's a great time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bookends. AJ here again. Unfortunately, have not been able to hear this part as we record. But Trev, do you have any sort of debriefs for the peoples?
I really loved hearing some of Brad's strategies. A lot of this has to do with just sort of shifting your mindset to a more mature relationship with food, which is far easier said than done. But his strategy, the biggest takeaway for me on this listen, I'm sure that I'll hear different things on subsequent listens, but the biggest strategy was to really build a string of victories. So if you're going to if you're convinced that fasting is a good thing and you want to try it, and you decide I'm going to go for, the 24 hours, here we go. He says, him saying go for 24 hours and don't go any longer, because what he wants is people to avoid is to start, pushing their fast as long as they can possibly stand it, and then just breaking it and stuffing their faces and then doing it again. And then you have this sort of, that's not a healthy relationship with food. So just the biggest takeaway was like, assign your fast length, do it, and then when it's up, 22 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours, whatever, break it responsibly, and then feel good about it that you just did that, and then plan your next one. And you only have to do this once or twice a week to see some pretty serious health and weight, body composition, I suppose, results. So that was my big takeaway from this one.
Epic. Yeah. Did you guys by any chance talk about, since I haven't heard it, sorry, have you guys talking about using like tools like I know you and I have experimented with like the Zero app to kind of help yourself keep track of things?
We didn't, and I wish I'd brought that up. There's a lot of things I wish we had chatted about, Brad and I. So we've bantered a little bit via email. So we may do a round 2 at some point in the future in some capacity somewhere on the internet. So stay tuned for that. But if anybody's curious about like a way to track their fasts, you've probably heard us talk about this app that Kevin Rose built. We talked about this many months ago, maybe even years ago at this point, but it's an app called Zero, and it's just a simple timer app. It just gives you a great way to sort of track how long you've been fasting and see your fasting history. And I think, AJ, right now you are doing, are you still practicing intermittent fasting?
I haven't been recently, but by recently I only mean the last like maybe few weeks. So I am definitely planning on starting again here shortly. I did it for a few months, stopped, came back for another like month or two, and I'm now stopped again. So I've been doing it off and on for about I guess it's like 6 to 8 months now, and I love it. I really have enjoyed the all the benefits from it. And there are days when I do it sort of without even realizing it at first, and then I'm like about to eat something and I'm like, wait a second, it's actually been 10 11 hours since I or like 12 hours since I last ate. I should drink some water, get in relationship with my sort of hunger thoughts, because hunger feelings, because it's not always true. Our brains are just kind of can be addicted to food, and then try to stave that off. So every once in a while I'll do it without actually measuring it in the app, but when I do it consistently, I'm doing it 6 days a week for between 16 to 18 hours typically on average. Sometimes I'll go 19 to 20.
Wow. Okay, rock on. Cool. Yeah, I like the Zero app. It's not necessarily built for the kind of fasting that Brad advocates, which is once or twice a week you go for 24 hours. But you can still you can still try and get between 12 and 13 hours between dinner and breakfast, or dinner and lunch, if you'd like. And so that's sort of what I tend to do with that app. I'll just set it for 13 hours and then aim to do at least 13 hours every day, minus the 1 or 2 days a week where I'll go for a full 24 hours. But like you, I've really noticed some positive things. It's funny that I've become that I've begun to look forward to being cold and hungry.
You say cold and hungry?
Yeah. Well, we talk about this in this aspect of the interview, but part of what happens when your body sort of switches to the fat burning metabolism mode is that you get cold. Your body gets cold. It's redirecting its energy into I think it's called apoptosis or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but essentially it's just freeing the energy from the fat cells, and it requires pulling the blood from your extremities in order to do that, and so you get cold.
That's really interesting.
Have you not experienced that?
No, I mean, look, I probably just haven't paid attention to it. Like I have, it probably has been happening, and I wasn't drawing the correlation because I'm dumb. But I was just thinking, yeah, it's fine. A little self-deprecation never hurt me. Never hurt nobody but me. I've been watching, as you know, I'm obsessed with, backcountry backpacking right now. That's like my main thing. And I've seen in the last few weeks, I've seen several of these hikers talk about eating before they go to bed, like eating something before they get into their tent at the end of the night because it helps to keep them warm. And I was like, oh, because their metabolism is going. I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. So I feel like this is all well and good as long as you are living in, I don't know, relative comfort. Like you can warm yourself up, put a jacket on, that kind of thing, gloves. If you're in sort of extreme conditions, it might not be the best idea.
Yeah.
It could become hypothermic.
Yes. Yeah. It can. Yeah, exactly. This is definitely a very privileged conversation we are having around, not eating. We have that choice, rather than, being forced into it, due to, other circumstances. So, yeah. I feel
like maybe that would be an easy critique of the intermittent fasting movement, is for people to just, poo-poo it entirely because they're like, well, that's like, what a privileged place to be that you can choose not to eat. It's like, but yeah, also people choose to, eat healthily, which not everyone can do. And people choose to go to the gym, which not everyone can do. So, yeah, I would hate for anyone to be turned off to a possibility for improving their health just because they think, anyway, I'm going down some weird political rabbit hole that I'm going to stop and then cover up and hope no one noticed or trips and falls in it.
All right. Well, let's move on to picks of the week then. What is your pick of the week?
Oh, thank God. Good save, bro. So admittedly, I completely stole this from Jasmine, and I actually don't even enjoy it that much, but I'm sharing it with people because I was inspired. I read your newsletter, which, by the way, I almost made your newsletter as my pick of the week, but I thought that would be too self-serving.
Appreciate that.
Trevor has an awesome newsletter. You should all go sign up for it. But anyway, I was reading your latest one about adrenal fatigue and caffeine and whatnot. And I was like, what interesting timing, because in addition to intermittent fasting, one of the other things that I think is important is having coffee-free days. And I do mean days plural. So like at least once or twice a week, and then sometimes in multiple day, stints. See if you're, check your addiction. Like check your addiction to caffeine. And one of the ways that Jasmine has been doing it lately, and I tried it and I just wasn't the biggest fan. There's some teas that I think I would prefer over this, but she found this this herbal blend called Dandy Blend. It's literally called Dandy Blend at dandyblend.com. And it's just this combination of chicory root and dandelion root and sugar beets and stuff, non-GMO, dissolves really quickly in water. You can drink it cold or hot. So like iced tea or coffee, basically. And it's got, there's no bitterness to it, but it does have a sort of like smoky coffee flavor. So if you need some help on your caffeine-free days, your coffee-free days / caffeine-free days, give it a shot. I thought it might be useful for people because I didn't want to get on a soapbox and be like, you shouldn't drink coffee every day. You might be an addict, without giving people some kind of alternative. So there it is. Dandy Blend.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website here. This is really interesting. I'm so curious to hear about your caffeine-free days. This is another conversation for another time, but I'd love to chat with you about that offline or maybe in the next episode, because this has been a huge issue in my life recently. I've just sort of realized the damage I was doing by, frankly, abusing caffeine. And this looks like a really great sort of alternative. I do tea as well. I still do tea. I do like green tea, but just 1 cup a day at the very most. And this looks like a great thing that might be a nice sort of comfort in the transition to caffeine low caffeine lifestyle.
You should try it. I think you would like it, Trev.
Cool. All right, Dandy Blend. I'm gonna give this a shot. Right on.
Come over. I'll make you a cup right now.
All right. Don't ask me twice. Right on, man. Cool. DandyBlend.com.
Yes. What is your pick of the week?
So Helena of Ms. in the Biz fame sent this to me a week or two ago. It's a documentary called California Typewriter, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime right now for free. You can stream it, and I loved it so much I watched it twice. It is a movie about typewriters, essentially, on the surface. It's a movie about the sort of dying typewriter industry and all the sort of fanatics that are in that world. But beyond that, sort of wrapped inside that, is a movie about the creative process, about your relationship to the tactile world, your tactile relationship to the tactile world. It's really a beautifully done and fun and quirky movie with some interesting celebrity appearances. John Mayer is in it. Tom Hanks is in it.
I've always known about Tom Hanks' typewriter obsession. It does not surprise me that he's in this.
Oh, it's great. It's great, too. He's so shameless about it. But it's a really fun movie. I really, really, really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for a great movie about the artistic creative process that's also about the sort of, I don't know, fun world of typewriters, check it out. Helena actually, after she sent it to me, she's like, I'm going to get a typewriter right now. And a week later, she sent me a picture. She's like, this is the typewriter I found. I'm going to get this one. She has all these ideas for making poetry books and things but analog style, which I think that is something that we can all use a little bit more of in our digital lives these days. There's something about the tactile feedback of a physical object that's immediate and very gratifying when we live in a world of everything being on screens. So check it out, California Typewriter. And if you are looking for some good companion movies, I think two movies that would really go well with this, as if this were a wine, I think two movies that go well is Finding Vivian Mayer by, you've seen that movie. We've talked about that movie before on this
I think it was
show.
I think it was one of my picks of the week, actually.
Yeah. I think I made it a pick as well. I really enjoyed that film. And then also Exit Through the Gift Shop is another great film about art. So these three movies together, I feel like make a nice, meditation on creativity and our relationship to art, which is kind of an amorphous thing when you think about it. What is art? It's really up to the eye of the beholder. So check it out, CaliforniaTypewriterMovie.com.
I'm really excited. I am going to watch that.
It's great.
Potentially this afternoon.
Cool. I'd love to hear what you think, man. It's great.
Awesome. So that's my pick of the week, stolen from Jasmine. She'll be none the wiser until she listens to this episode. Dandy Blend. You can find them at dandyblend.com. And then Trevor's pick of the week, California Typewriter, a documentary, go figure, about typewriters. Anything else before we head out of here, brother?
That's it, man. Let's do it.
All right. Today's episode of Inside Acting was produced and hosted by yours truly, AJ Meyer and Trevor Algat. Team IAP also includes Jen Levin and Grace Gordon.
Visit us online at InsideActing.net and sign up for our weekly email dispatch to to get our email dispatch. And then also at our website, wow, I should fix this. You can listen to all of our episodes. Hey, we're also on social media. Grace is doing a bang-up job with our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, so check us out there. And you can find the podcast pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play. You search for it, you will find it. We hope.
We hope, yes. We're Inside Acting without the exclamation point. You'll understand if you Google. You can directly support the continuing production of Inside Acting with either a one-time financial contribution or an ongoing monthly contribution. Just visit us at InsideActing.net to learn more. Help us, keep the lights on as long as you like, I guess, is the way to put that.
Yeah, nice save. That's it for episode 307, guys. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, go slow to go fast.